There is no trick, no AI deepfake here. That is a real baby crocodile. And he's about to have a wrestling match with this man. On Japanese TV, in front of a paying crowd of men and women and children. And whatever you might conceive in your head, things don't turn out how you might think. So what exactly is going on here? Well, before we get to this specific altercation, I want to explain something called the Japanese Deathmatch. Whether you're a fan of pro wrestling or not, you may have seen the occasional hardcore wrestling clip from WWE, previously known as the WWF, or more recently something like AEW. And for anyone that jumps in the comment section and says, bro, it's fake, the statement's understandable. People may not understand why some people like certain things, but the word you're looking for is scripted. Movies, TV shows, and plays are fake. Imagine if I went to Netflix and they had like a comment section and I went over to Stranger Things and said, I can't watch this shit. This shit's fake as fuck. This is for children. I can't relate to any of this spooky garbage. The truth is, we don't watch series of movies for their non-fiction content. We fall in love with the characters. We relate to the intricacies and the mannerisms of the main character. We follow the stories because they are intriguing. That's what pro wrestling is. It's a song, a dance, a fight, a sad moment, a happy moment, a fourth wall breaking moment. And since wrestling often dives into the world of reality, the reality of the world can be gruesome. It can be rough. We all experience pain. We all experience a hard fall. The world of hardcore matches is nothing but this. Two individuals who seemingly want to murder each other. No disqualifications, no countouts. Weapons are encouraged heavily. Chairs, tables, ladders, barbed wire, light bulbs, nail boards, thumbtacks, bats, sledgehammers, fire. Anything to injure, maim, and seemingly commit attempted murder. These men and women have to be sadomasochists to sign up to willingly do this. The hardcore deathmatch has been lingering in professional wrestling zeitgeist since the middle of the 20th century. But it was not until an organization by the name of Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, FMW, started getting cheeky with the hardcore match in 1989. These matches were absolute bonkers, kids. I'm talking piranha matches, scorpion matches. Get over here. Rings, covered rope to mat and back with barbed wire. Not stage barbed wire. Not that shitty Pamela Anderson movie, Barbed Wire. And if you're too young to remember that or even know who she is, you're lucky, okay? This is the real stuff that could slice you up with a graze. This place was a breeding ground for blood-transmitted diseases. But these folks didn't care. The match wasn't about who was stronger, bigger, or oilier, or whatever the hell is going on here. It was about destroying your opponent and destroying them. All for entertainment, baby. Yeah! You may have heard of the Big Red Machine, Kane. But have you ever heard of the Bloody Machine, Abdullah Kobayashi? A student of Abdullah the Butcher. A big man, a thick man, who would bust it open regularly, himself and others. He had a more technical prowess. He could do high-flying maneuvers and introduce more traditional pro wrestling elements into his style. Or what about this guy Hayabusa? A masked warrior, Hayabusa, which translates to Falcon in English, and immediately reminds me of Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden and the Dead or Alive fighting game series. A legit ninja. And this guy isn't far off, okay, let me tell you. This guy started out as a jobber, which is someone who is put in the match card in order to get destroyed and prop up the rising and current stars of the game, but he traveled down to Mexico, learned the famous lucha libre style of wrestling, and brought this insane high-flying, rope-bouncing art to Japan. He was like a cat that finally got his wings. He performed well for 14 years, until one day in a match with a man named Mammoth Sasaki. He went for a routine springboard moonsault, which is a maneuver involving a backflip to their belly onto another wrestler where they used the middle rope in order to propel themselves. In this particular incident, Hayabusa missed the middle rope with one of his feet, but continued to do the motion and move backwards, as this was a move that he performed countless times. Hayabusa lands straight on his neck and is instantly paralyzed. His wrestling career cut short. 15 years later, he passes away. Wrestling is no joke. In an instant, everything in reality, the real life ramifications, everything can be lost. But even after such a horrific accident, this doesn't stop the Japanese wrestling promotions from upping the ante. In comes Mr. Danger, Mitsuhiro Matsunaga, who was a legit martial artist. So he was beating people up for real before this. And this guy was involved in some of the craziest moments in Japanese hell, pro wrestling, scratch that, the craziest moments in human history. He was involved in piranha matches, and this is where you take your opponent and shove their head underwater in a tank of flesh-eating piranhas for 10 seconds minimum. And of course, bloody fire matches. And this was all in the early 90s. Fast forward to September 23rd, 1998. Matsunaga versus Shadow WX. Earlier that year, BJW, Big Japan Wrestling, was looking to crown the first Deathmatch heavyweight champion. Matsunaga competed in this tournament, where he has made it all the way to the final and fought against the Great Pogo in something known as a glass and fire coffin cremation match on August 9th, which he ultimately lost. Just 2 weeks later, a rematch was in order, and Matsunaga prevailed. They had another glass and fire coffin cremation match. Now, this seemed like this would lead up to something crazier, a final match between the two, an insane bout. I don't know what the fuck is crazier than two cremation matches, but the score was 1-1, with Matsunaga now being the champion. He was ready to go and defend the belt whenever, but the Great Pogo was brutally injured from their last match and was unable to compete. So who would step up? In comes Shadow WX, Satoru Shiga, who made his way into BJW in 96 and became the protege of Mr. Pogo. Now, to avenge his master, he challenges Matsunaga to a three-way board alligator match. But the stipulation involved a hardcore match with all the fixings, including a board pierced with real rusty nails, and of course, barbed wire. But either participants could win the match via pinfall or submission, but would immediately be thrust into a match with an alligator. I'm actually sure is a baby crocodile, and they'd be trapped in the ring, and they'd have to wrangle this thing back into its enclosure. The match begins, and we have a few strikes between the two before it quickly disperses out into the BJW crowd. And I always thought it was so funny that the wrestlers just let themselves be dragged like this. Like, I know they got to get to their next spot, but there has to be more creative ways of moving your opponent, like chasing them with something and they run, or punching them and they fall back into the direction. This just breaks immersion for me. Mr. Danger drags his man through the hallway like he is his disobedient child in the grocery store. And honestly, it kind of drags on. It's just his arm around him like it's his best friend or his pity prom date. Immediately thrusts him into a fuse box, possibly splitting open Shadow's cheeks. And Shadow decides he's done. So he actually just starts heading for the exit. He's just trying to fucking leave. But of course, Mr. Danger gets a nice gentle grip, not too hard, and once again drags Shadow back toward the ring area. In the meantime, a large crowd of fans under the influence surround the duo, until they arrive at the concession stands, where Mr. Danger slams Shadow's concussed head onto the storefront's counter, delivers some kicks and punches, and awkwardly drags each other up the stairs. In the middle of this small theater crowd, Shadow makes the signal to end the fight and delivers a jumping pile driver to Matsunaga, which is dangerous on a fluffy surface, but this is solid concrete, which leaves him dazed and confused and possibly concussed. The sick fuck in the crowd brings out this board with fluorescent light bulbs fastened to it, and he hands it over to Shadow. I guess this is the final of the three board types here, so they help him to place it across the stairwell entrance. Shadow signals to the crowd to get the fuck out of the way because it's time for murder. He attempts a suplex, but he can't seem to lift the man. He's probably exhausted from all that fucking walking they did. He turns it into a disgusting counter, suplexes through the light bulbs, and drops Shadow onto his spine on the top stair. And the crowd starts chanting. Somehow, they end up back at the ring where they begin trading blows. Mr. Pogo's crew grabs a barbed wire board and places it on 4 chairs. Oh, never mind. They grab 4 more chairs on that and then another light bulb board. He takes him up what looks to be a good 4-foot drop and power bombs him through the damn death tower. Meanwhile, while Matsunaga is writhing in pain, they set up the final board of nails in the ring. At this point, it's like 5 guys on one, and 5 guys on one. I must be dreaming. He gets dragged into the ring by the goons, while Shadow, the crazy asshole, busts a light bulb over his head like he's just had a mortifyingly bright idea come to his lunatic brain. But not so fast. Matsunaga comes back with a counter and a Russian leg sweep onto the broken bulb in the ring, leaving shards in Shadow's skull. Things get nasty now. Mr. Danger picks up the bat with barbed wire wrapped around it and begins strangling Shadow, causing lacerations on his neck. Beaten and bloodied, Shadow grabs another bulb, reaching over and busting it over the head of Mr. Danger. Matsunaga bounces back off the ropes, charges at Shadow, and he scoops him up for a falling body slam through the nail bed. 1, 2, 3. Shadow wins. The match is over. They cover the ropes with a net. A coffin and a plastic tub is placed in the ring with a baby crocodile. Matsunaga begins toying with the enclosure, and honestly, this part is just a big joke. The crocodile is far more terrified of him than he is of it. It gets the crowd riled up a little bit, and don't get me wrong, I wouldn't do it. But at this point, it just seems more like animal abuse rather than some gladiator-esque moment. It's not that exciting. Matsunaga realizes how unentertaining this is and makes quick work of enclosing the gator in the coffin and ending the match. And this was the first and last crocodile match in pro wrestling history. If you made it this far into the video, comment down below what's the craziest moment that you've ever witnessed in pro wrestling. Now, a lot of these men and women went through absolute hell. But if you ever wondered what hell actually looks like, click on this video right here.